What if I told you that right now, as you're listening to this, your brain is generating around 70,000 thoughts today? And here's the kicker, up to 80% of them are negative. That means your mind is basically running a 24/7 anxiety radio station, broadcasting the same worried reruns, the same "what if I'm not good enough" playlist, and the same exhausting mental loops over and over again. If you're wondering why your life feels stuck in neutral, why simple decisions feel impossibly heavy, or why you find yourself lying awake at 2 a.m. giving imaginary TED talks about every way you've ever failed, listen closely. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're just overthinking, and it's stealing your life one spiraling thought at a time. The problem we all face, I used to live in this mental prison too. Overthinking wasn't just a bad habit for me, it was my entire lifestyle. It was like wearing invisible glasses that made everything look more complicated, more dangerous, more overwhelming than it actually was. Every text message became a puzzle to decode. Every conversation got replayed 100 times. Every decision felt like it could ruin everything. But here's what changed my life. I realized that overthinking isn't just something that happens to you. It's something you can actually control. So I created 5 rules. Not the kind of fluffy advice you see on Pinterest boards, but real, gritty, tested in the trenches rules that actually work. These are the 5 rules that helped me stop overthinking everything from career moves to whether I sounded weird saying "thank you" to the grocery store cashier in a voice that was definitely too enthusiastic for 9 a.m. Fafe Rule 1. If you're going to spiral, spiral on purpose. Here's something most people don't realize. Most mental spirals happen in the background, like a radio playing static while you're trying to focus on something else. You're making breakfast, and suddenly your brain goes, "Hey, remember that time you said you too, when the waitress said, 'Happy birthday'? What kind of socially awkward disaster are you?" And before you know it, you're questioning your entire existence because of one awkward moment from 3 years ago. So here's what I started doing differently. When I feel that spiral energy building up, I don't fight it. I don't try to push it down or distract myself. Instead, I grab a pen and paper, sit down and say, "All right, brain, let's do this properly. Hit me with your worst-case scenario theater." And I write it all out. Every ridiculous, catastrophic, cringe-worthy thought. My boss seemed distracted on our call, which obviously means I'm getting fired next week, which means I'll never find another job, which means I'll end up living in my car, eating ramen noodles, and dying alone while my cat judges me. You know what happens 9 times out of 10. By the time I finish writing it all down, I'm actually laughing. Because when you drag those shadowy fears into the light, you realize how absolutely absurd most of them are. Here's the truth. Vague anxiety is always scarier than specific fear. When your worries are just a gray fog in your mind, your brain can project any monster onto it. But when you force yourself to write down exactly what you're afraid of, suddenly that terrifying monster looks more like a scared little kid wearing a Halloween costume. Fafe Rule 2. Your brain is a terrible oracle. Stop asking it to predict the future. We all do this, don't we? You're about to send an honest text to someone you care about, and your brain immediately goes into fortune teller mode. But what if they think you're clingy? What if they screenshot it and send it to their friends? What if this is the message that makes them realize you're actually weird and they've just been pretending to like you? Or your brain presents these scenarios like they're factual predictions, like it has some mystical ability to see into the future. But here's what I learned: your brain isn't a prophet, it's a projector. Think about it like this. Your brain's primary job isn't to make you happy, it's to keep you alive. So it takes every old wound, every past rejection, every embarrassing memory, and uses them to create disaster simulations. It's like having a paranoid security guard in your head who sees danger in every shadow. Your brain would rather keep you small and safe than big and possibly hurt. It would rather have you never try than risk failure. It would rather keep you isolated than risk rejection. So instead of asking, "What if everything goes wrong?" I started asking, "What's actually true right now?" Because most of the time, the pain we feel isn't from what's happening, it's from the horror movie our brain is writing about what might happen. And you can't build a real life in a hypothetical world. High fee rule 3. Never trust thoughts that show up after midnight. This rule is simple but life-changing. If a thought shows up after midnight, it's probably lying to you. Night, time you is unhinged. Night, time you has no chill, no perspective, and no business making major life decisions. Night, time you starts wondering if your entire existence is a mistake because you have dirty dishes in the sink. I used to take my 2 a.m. thoughts seriously, like they were some kind of mystical download from the universe. Maybe this insomnia is giving me clarity, I'd think. Maybe these middle of the night revelations about how I'm wasting my life are actually profound insights. No, they weren't. They were just the mental equivalent of drunk texts from my own brain. Now, when those midnight thoughts start rolling in, the ones that make you question every friendship, every choice, every reason you have for existing, I treat them like what they are. Exhausted nonsense from a tired mind that's had too much screen time and not enough sleep. I literally talk to my brain like it's an overtired toddler. Okay, sweetie, that's enough existential crisis for tonight. We're going to put you to bed, and we'll talk about this tomorrow when you've had some water and 8 hours of sleep. You are allowed to ignore the voice in your head until it's properly rested. For Rule 4, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. Here's something I discovered about overthinking. It absolutely thrives in indecision. It feeds off of limbo like a vampire feeds off blood. You know that feeling when you're stuck in a relationship that's fine, or a job that's okay, or pursuing some half-hearted goal that doesn't really light you up, and you find yourself going back and forth, making pros and cons lists, asking 17 different friends for advice, journaling about it for weeks, researching every possible angle. Meanwhile, your gut is sitting there like, hello, I've been trying to tell you this isn't right, but you're so afraid of being wrong that you'd rather analyze this to death than just listen to me. Because we think if we just think hard enough, long enough, we'll stumble upon some perfect answer that makes everyone happy and avoids all possible negative consequences. Spoiler alert, that answer doesn't exist. Here's what I learned, if something is right for you, even if it's difficult, even if it's scary, there's a stillness underneath it. A quiet knowing, a sense of alignment that doesn't need to be argued with or convinced. And when something is wrong, it always feels like force, like trying to wear shoes that are 2 sizes too small just because they were on sale, like trying to convince yourself that settling is actually wisdom. Stop pretending your hesitation is just being thorough. Sometimes hesitation is just your intuition with the volume turned down. Rule 5. You are not your thoughts. You are the one noticing them. This rule right here. This is the game changer. The mind liberator. The thing that will set you free from the tyranny of your own overthinking brain. I used to believe that every thought I had meant something important about me. If I thought, I'm not good enough, that meant I actually wasn't good enough. If I thought, I'm going to fail, that meant failure was inevitable. If I thought, nobody really likes me, that must be the truth my subconscious was revealing. But then someone asked me a question that completely shifted everything. If you're the one hearing the thought, who's doing the listening? And that question shattered my old way of thinking in the most beautiful way possible. Because I realized I am not the thought. I am the witness to the thought. I am not the storm of anxiety. I am the sky that the storm passes through. Think about it like this. Right now, you can hear my voice speaking these words, but you are not my voice. You are the awareness that's receiving it. In the same way, when your brain generates a thought like, I'm a failure, you are not that thought. You are the consciousness that observes it. This means you don't have to believe everything your brain tells you. You can let thoughts pass through your mind like weather. Look, it's raining anxiety again. How interesting. I wonder what thought will come next. This doesn't mean ignoring real problems or dismissing genuine intuition. It means learning to tell the difference between wisdom and worry, between intuition and intrusive thoughts, between a real red flag and just another random Tuesday freak out. The beautiful truth about being broken. Let me share a story that someone once told me, and it changed how I see my overthinking mind forever. There was a woman in a village who carried water every day using two large jars. One jar was perfect, smooth, strong, never losing a drop. The other jar had a crack running down its side, and by the time the woman reached home, half the water had leaked out. Day after day, the cracked jar watched the perfect jar deliver all its water while it could only deliver half. The cracked jar felt useless, broken, like a failure. One day, the cracked jar couldn't take it anymore. It said to the woman, "Why do you keep using me? I'm damaged. I'm not as good as the other jar. I'm just wasting your time and effort." The woman smiled gently and said, "Have you never noticed the path we walk together? Look to your side of the road." For the first time, the cracked jar looked, and there, growing along its side of the path, was the most beautiful garden of flowers, vibrant, colorful, bringing joy to everyone who passed by. "I planted seeds along your side of the path," the woman explained, "and every day, as we walk, you water them. The other jar delivers water to my house, which is important. But you bring beauty to the world without even realizing it. The parts of us that feel broken, that feel like too much, that feel like they're leaking everywhere, those are often the parts that are quietly making the world more beautiful. Your sensitivity, your deep thinking, your ability to feel everything so intensely, these aren't bugs in your system. They're features. Your new beginning. So yes, overthinking sucks. It steals your peace, wastes your time, and convinces you that one typo in an email means your entire career is over. But you don't have to live like this anymore, because now you know how to spiral with purpose instead of spiraling out of control. You know your brain can't actually predict the future, no matter how convincing its disaster scenarios seem. You know that thoughts that show up after midnight are about as reliable as a weather forecast from a magic 8-ball. You know your gut already has the answer, even when your head wants to debate it for another 6 months. And most importantly, you know that you are not your thoughts. You are the witness. You are the awareness. You are the peaceful space in which all thoughts arise and pass away. You are not behind in life. You are not broken. You are not too much or not enough. You're just becoming someone who can handle the life you've been dreaming of. And maybe that version of you starts right here, right now, by thinking just a little less and living a whole lot more. If this message hit something deep inside you, do me one favor, share it with someone else who needs to hear it. Because the world needs more people who are brave enough to get out of their heads and into their lives.